Welcome to the Unveiled Epic Echoes channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. In the summer of 1962, in a dust-soft town tucked along the Missouri River where cicadas sang like clockwork and time seemed to stretch lazily between church bells, there lived a quiet child named Samuel who spoke less with words and more with pencils. The kind of boy teachers described as imaginative and neighbors described as peculiar. Because while other children drew houses with square windows and suns with smiling faces, Samuel filled page after page with places no one recognized. Winding staircases carved into canyon walls, bridges arcing over invisible rivers, cities half buried in sand yet glowing with lamplight. And he drew them not like dreams, but like memories, precise down to cracked stones, weathered signs, and symbols no adult could name. Samuel lived with his mother, Ruth, a widow who worked nights at the textile mill and days pretending not to worry. And it was she who first noticed that her son's drawings carried a strange weight, because when she asked where he had seen such places, Samuel would shrug and say they were waiting, as if the world were unfinished and he was merely filling in the blanks. The town librarian, Mrs., noticed it next when Samuel began borrowing books far beyond his years, volumes on ancient civilizations, forgotten trade routes, and pre-colonial maps of North America that showed rivers bending where none now flowed. And when she laid one such map beside Samuel's drawings, her hands trembled, because the child had sketched a stone city in the exact shape of a site rumored among early explorers but officially dismissed as myth, a place said to predate known tribes. Built by wanderers who believed the land remembered itself and could be guided back into forgotten forms. Word traveled slowly, but it traveled, and by autumn a visiting history professor named Dr. Elias Monroe arrived under the polite excuse of family research, though his eyes sharpened when he saw Samuel's sketchbook, because decades earlier he had uncovered references to the cartographers of the first silence, an almost erased order from ancient times who believed that places could be dreamed forward. That drawing was not imitation but invocation, and that certain minds, especially those unburdened by certainty, could serve as conduits between what was and what could be again. Samuel, unaware of theories or danger, continued to draw, and as winter crept in, small things began to happen. A dried creek behind the school refilling overnight along the exact curves Samuel had traced weeks earlier. A rock formation appearing after a landslide that mirrored one of his shaded cliffs. And the townspeople, caught between awe and fear, began to watch the child as if he were a weather pattern, unpredictable yet undeniably real. Ruth tried to protect him, insisting it was coincidence, that children imagined things all the time. But when a drawing Samuel completed on a sleepless February night showed a circle of standing stones glowing faintly beneath a moonless sky, and 3 days later a farmer reported uncovering such stones while plowing frozen ground, their surfaces etched with the same symbols Samuel had drawn without reference, denial became impossible. Dr. Monroe urged secrecy, explaining in hushed tones that history had a habit of burying what unsettled it, that entire civilizations had been erased not by disaster but by deliberate forgetting, and that Samuel's gift might awaken truths the modern world was not ready to face. Truths about America's deeper past, older than colonies and borders, when the land was mapped not with ink, but with intention. The tension grew as reporters sniffed around, and government men arrived asking gentle questions with sharp undertones, while Samuel himself grew paler, more distant, as if each drawing pulled something from him, and he began to complain of hearing the places call to him at night, not with voices but with a low, patient pull like gravity asking to be obeyed. The climax came in the spring of 1963, when Samuel unveiled his largest drawing yet. a vast valley city hidden beneath layers of earth and time, centered around a spiral plaza identical to one described in a fragmentary account from a Spanish expedition that vanished in the 1500s. And Dr. Monroe, shaken, realized this was no isolated manifestation, but the return of a network, a reassembly of places meant to re-emerge together, and if completed, the world would be forced to confront a rewritten history, one where ancient knowledge had survived not in ruins, but in waiting. That night, as storms rolled across the plains, Samuel disappeared, leaving behind his final drawing unfinished on the kitchen table. And the town searched until dawn, only to find him standing calmly in a newly revealed valley miles from where no valley had existed before. The land folded open like a remembered thought, stone paths warm beneath his bare feet, and the air humming with a presence both old and gentle. Ruth ran to him, and Samuel smiled with exhaustion and peace, explaining that the places didn't want to replace the world, only to be remembered into it, and that he could not keep drawing forever because the gift was never meant to last, only to open the door. As authorities closed in, the valley began to soften, the stones fatting like breath on glass, and Dr. Monroe understood at last that Samuel was not creating but completing a cycle, allowing the land to briefly show what it had held all along. And with a final glance at his mother, Samuel closed his eyes, and the place settled back into the earth, leaving behind only grass and silence and a boy who would never draw again. In the years that followed, Samuel lived an ordinary life, his memory of the places dimming into dreams, while Dr. Monroe published nothing, choosing instead to archive fragments where few would look, and Ruth kept the drawings locked away, knowing some truths were safer when whispered, yet across the country, hikers would stumble upon impossible stone alignments. Towns would uncover ruins where no ruins should be, and children would sometimes sketch places they'd never seen, not realizing they were echoes of a moment when the land was briefly allowed to remember itself through the steady hand of a child who listened when history knocked softly, asking to exist once more. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you, and see you again.